The Syrian Democratic Forces have been at the forefront in the fight against the Islamic State. ISIS once controlled an area the size of Great Britain across Syria and Iraq. Now they've been pushed back to barely 2 square kilometers. And Defense Department officials say the end of the terror group's reign is only days away. CBN contributor Chuck Holton is on the front lines in Syria and brings us this report about how one Christian ministry is bringing practical aid and spiritual hope.
Here in southern Syria, within sight of the Iraqi border, U.S.-backed Syrian Democratic Forces have set the stage for the last stand of the ISIS caliphate in that country. The fighting has been brutal, and while the SDF have tried to evacuate civilians from the battle space, ISIS has thwarted those efforts by using up to 10,000 civilians as human shields. For those who do escape, however, their ordeal is far from over.
So this is the Syrian Defense Forces checkpoint about a mile from what they call the forward line of troops, the front lines against ISIS that are off that direction. They have walked to this point after getting across ISIS lines. These women are in terribly bad shape. Some of them are wounded. The children are obviously dehydrated, malnourished, and sick. And they're receiving some kind of initial treatment here. The difficulty is that they've had a problem with many of these women actually wearing suicide vests, and they had 5 blow themselves up in one day. And so it's kind of a tense situation being here. They've already been checked by some of the female SDF soldiers, but we've still got to, just be careful and hope that these women love their children enough that they're not going to do anything stupid like that.
But between the front line and the nearest refugee camp, there's nothing but more than 200 miles of arid Syrian desert. No food, water, or shelter. Into this gap is stepping a group of Christians who make it their mission to travel to front lines around the globe and help people at their point of greatest need. They are the Free Burma Rangers, and their founder, Dave Eubank, has been working on the front lines in this region since 2015.
God is sending a mighty river into Syria of His Spirit to change things. And I said, we're not a river, man, we're a drop. And he said, we're all drops in God's rain, and it forms a river. And you and I may not live to see the day of change, but it's coming, because God cares about these people.
All right, we're here to rescue. A former U.S. Army Special Forces officer, Eubank has seen much of war. So have his ethnic medics, who grew up in the conflict zone in Burma and have used their skills here to save many lives. From Dave's perspective on the ground, he says pulling out of Syria would be the worst thing the U.S. can do.
The military side, they've done a great job, and they're doing a great job. They need to stay and complete that, and stay to keep this space open. But humanitarian, there's a huge gap. The humanitarian gap from the front line to, for example, the nearest hospital, 4 hours. So you could be shot up there and then take a whole day to cross, another day to get here, then 4 more hours before you get to a hospital. So what the U.S. could do, practically, is set up field hospitals to support the Syrian Democratic Forces to improve their ability to save lives.
Those who arrive here are often gravely injured, like this taxi driver whose home was hit by a bomb as he and his family were sleeping.
At 3 in the morning, our house was destroyed, and there were 23 of us inside.
Only Salam, one son, and a daughter made it out alive. But even before that tragedy, life inside the Islamic Caliphate was unbearable.
Life was terrible in there. We had to carry water from far away, and we ate grass to stay alive. ISIS wanted money to let us leave, but we had no money, and finally, they let us go.
You might think it's crazy for a group of civilians to venture so close to the front lines, but this is no ordinary missions team or a group of tourists. These are highly trained medics and lots of prior military experience here that kind of makes them uniquely qualified to do the kind of work they're doing, addressing that humanitarian gap between the front lines where people are escaping ISIS and the first refugee camps, because there really isn't anything to help those people between those 2 points.
This is what we're made to do. We like it. This is the kind of work we can do. And we're not too afraid of the front line or fighting. And we have the skills, but all of that is only useful and only workable if led by God.
These men surrendered to SDF forces from the conflict area and are suspected ISIS fighters. Be that as it may, they are sick, hungry, and some were wounded. So the FBR team gave them water and medicine, and then Eubank said a prayer.
Lord Jesus, please bless all these men. Let them call on your name. In Mosul, we lost a lot of friends. I was wounded 4 times. I lost my translator. 30 guys I knew well were killed. 3 of my team were wounded. In the face of that, why would we help them? Because God sent us, and we know I'm not perfect. Those that'll raise their hand and say, pull me out, I want to pull them out. That's redemption. That's how things change. And this is the first time I said I forgive ISIS. That's God's work in my heart. That's God's work in my heart.
From southern Syria, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
Alpha, Omega.